Caregivers, have you ever felt like nothing is going right? Well, cheer up and welcome to Dave The Caregiver's Caregiver radio program, where you'll learn how to avoid that dreaded thing called caregiver burnout and how to survive the grieving process. Join Dave and his guests now as they share practice tips and tools that you can start using immediately to help get you through this day. Now, here's your caregiver host, Dave Nassani.
From Los Angeles and New York City, a big LA welcome and a big Apple welcome to all my listeners out there in Radio Land. I am Dave, the Caregiver's Caregiver, at caregiverdave.com, along with my lovely co-host, Adrienne Gruberg, at thecaregiverspace.org. Coming to you live and on demand 24/7 on 18, actually it's 20 now, global audio video platforms. iHeartRadio, iTunes, YouTube, Spreaker, SoundCloud, Vimeo, Stitcher, Blog Talk Radio, Mixcloud, Listen Notes, Blueberry, Player FM, Podcast.com, VIP Internet Radio, TuneIn.com, Facebook Live, HealthyLife.net, and CaregiverDave.com. And that, I missed a couple of them, but that's okay. 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Yeah.
We're proud to be voted #1 caregiver podcast of the top 50 on Player FM and one of the top 6 best podcasts by Caring.com, as well as #3 podcast out of thousands of caregiver podcasts on FeedSpot. I didn't even know there was thousands of caregiver podcasts, but thank God for that. And we have an exciting show planned for you today, don't we, Adrienne?
Yes, we do.
If she says it, it must be so.
It's true.
John Haggerty and Janis Butler are owners of Your Soul's Toolbox, where spirituality and psychology converge. And John is an entrepreneur and an IT professional, so that means he's very smart, and he holds a BA in management from Baylor University. And Janis has a BA from Stanford University, on my part of town over here, and a master's in spiritual psychology. And she is writing Your Soul's Toolbook. And before we get started, let's take a moment and thank last week's guest, Precious Goodson. Precious is an educator, speaker, scholar, blogger, writer, leader in the military community. She's a military caregiver to a combat wounded veteran and advocates for military families. And just a reminder, you can watch or listen to that interview and all our interviews on our membership website, caregiverdave.com, or any of our other 18 global networks that I mentioned earlier, like iTunes, YouTube, SoundCloud, etc. All right, enough of that. Welcome to the show, John and Janis. I'm so excited to have you on.
Hi, we're happy to be here, Dave. Thank you.
Why don't you both take a minute or two and introduce yourself? I like to ask my guests just who is John and Janis and why were they put on this earth? And while you're answering those, I'll try to hook you all up with Facebook Live.
Oh, good.
Yes, again, I'm John Haggerty, and I'm happy to be here. We have a lot to share related to caregiving. It has a lot to do with my cancer that I'm currently in treatment for. And a little bit about me. I enjoy recreation, golf, sports, fishing, and like to have a lot of fun. So,
fun is important.
We do have fun. Yeah.
I am actually. My wife Janis provides a lot of care for me, and in turn, we both provide care for my 92-year-old mom, who is in a skilled nursing facility right now.
Oh, wow. And Janis is helping with that, I assume?
She is. We kind of share that loving obligation, and yes, so.
Yeah, and so I'm Janis Butler, and we met on a hike, John and I did, about 6.5 years ago, and it was instant. Attraction, and we knew right off that our souls had a part in bringing us together, and that it was probably a little bit of a charge for them, but they managed, and it's were one of the things that attracted us to each other was our interest in our soul nature, and then also in addition to what John has told you about the cancer we're dealing with for him and his mom, John and I met 6 weeks after my then husband died of stage 4 liver and bone cancer, as well as a failing heart. And then prior to that, my mother had died at 94, and so I've kind of been around this.
This isn't your first rodeo.
Caregiving, yes, and so I am writing this book.
Your Soul's Toolbox.
Your Soul's Toolbox, Secrets to Constructing Your Best Self. And it's all to help people manage their lives, because the spiritual psychology masters that I received, a 2-year program, really has enabled me with tips and practices, principles that have helped John and me deal with the cancer and his mom.
Yeah, and back to our meeting, I mean, it was improbable otherwise how we met. Aside from the cancer, I have an eye disease. It's been a lifelong issue for me. My corneas were damaged in the service, and it triggered an eye disease, and I wound up having cornea transplants. And subsequently, the eye disease progressed outside the perimeter of the donor graft. So here I've been dealing with this for about 50 years now. So I didn't hike at night, and my daughter was interested in hiking because I got so passionate about it. And she said, "Well, I'll be your eyes, and we'll do an evening hike." And that's when I saw this gorgeous woman coming to the circle.
Really?
Join in with the hikes, and we just locked eyes, and that was it.
Wow, it sounds like fate to me.
It was.
So now you're the caregiver, the classic caregiver who needs a caregiver, because you need a caregiver, and yet you're caregiving your mother.
Yes. Yes.
How's that working out?
There's no question. It's stressful at times. As a caregiver to my mom and someone who has a cancer diagnosis, it's kind of a slippery slope. You need to kind of take time out for yourself, as well as afford that time for my mom, who's kind of needy too. So it can be difficult to manage at times. But
the key though is when we got John's diagnosis of cancer, he flipped. We were in a meditation retreat for a week, and he got the phone call, and right away it was my job to calm him, help him stay in the present.
Right, absolutely.
Where there is no overwhelm. Right in the present, there is no overwhelm. You do have a chance to do something about what you're faced with. It's when we go, oh, what did I do to cause this? And that's guilt. Then you bring all that up, and then you go forward, worry, and oh my God, what does this mean for me? And so no, if you stay right in the present, you can handle anything, because that's where life is anyway.
You helped him through the grief process. How fortunate of you, John, to have her by your side. And you're such a cute couple, too. Adrienne has a boyfriend as well after caregiving, and they're a cute couple also.
Good for you, Adrienne.
Thank you.
But initially it was really kind of tough to stay in that mindful present lane. I did drift quite often, and it really was Janis that kind of kept me on the straight and narrow. And
well, one of the keys is to listen as a caregiver. your primary job one of your primary jobs is to listen, and not just yes, 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 but give your full attention to your loved one, to the patient, so they know they're being heard. And when you give this full attention with your soul-centered ears, your soul-centered eyes, there's an exchange. It's felt, and there's a relief that's offered to the person who has received the diagnosis.
That's true. You only told me to shut up once.
And did you ever lash out at her? Because when we're grieving, sometimes we hurt the ones we love.
Yeah, there's no question about that. It can be a very stressful situation, and as we internalize all this stuff, we cause a lot of our own stress. So Janis has really kind of been a good valve for that release of that stress at times.
It's about helping each other
Right.
with attitude, because when we go into stress, it's wanting things to be different than they really are. And so the first rule in coping with any challenge, and certainly a life-threatening challenge, is to accept what is. When we're in acceptance, then we can marshal all our energy to do something about it. John was great, and still is, at researching and doing his part, and my part was to help him stay out of resistance. And the opposite of resisting is accepting, and then you're able to use all that you have, all the energy you have,
That's a
to
good point.
go forward with good passion.
Yeah, that's part of the grief process, accepting the new normal.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it is.
How long did it take you to do that? Or are you still trying?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think I'm getting there. I'm not 100% there yet. I'm going to have some lab work coming up shortly. That'll be a big tell on where I'm at. So that always adds stress too. When you're coming up on finding out about your markers and your other levels from the lab work.
But it's important to remember and really get this in our heads that nothing outside of us causes our disturbance. It's what goes on inside of us. And so if we realize we're creating our own upset, that's not to say you can be Pollyanna about, oh, this is fine, because that's spiritual bypass, which I can tell you more about. But it's realizing that this is an internal job, and we have to accept that this is going on, whatever it is, and we don't like it, but we're not in resistance to it.
Yeah, Adrienne's husband died of cancer as well. Isn't that right, Adrienne?
I'm sorry to hear that, Adrienne.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's another side of this for me as well when I talk about the anxiety leading up to my upcoming lab work, and that is there is a selfless aspect to me as well, and I am concerned about Janis and how what I offload on her, and am I being fair to her? Am I being selfish? So all those questions kind of come into play for me as I try to just kind of manage through my day.
So did you go through the surgery, the chemo, the radiation? I mean, tell me about what they recommended and what you let them do.
I have, yes, thank you for that. I have not. I do have a Stanford oncologist who basically offered me radiation and hormone therapy. And at the time, I kind of, I just put that on the back burner. I kind of viewed that as my plan B, and I looked for a more natural approach to treating the cancer. And actually, I've been going to a little hospital over the border in Tijuana, and I've had a fair amount of success there. When you go down that route, it's not a quick turnaround for your cancer.
Yeah, for your audience, the name of the hospital is CHIPSA, CHIPSA, and it's strictly for cancer patients.
Right.
And they fly in from all over our country, from foreign countries, Canada, Europe, because they are renowned in the modalities, the variety of treatments they offer, and the care. It's a loving place, and you can be outpatient, which we have been for 2 years.
Yeah, and, a little over 2 years.
The facilities are great down there. Even the hotel rooms across the street from them, everything is high class, top notch, first class.
Yeah.
My cousin's wife, who I just saw yesterday in New York, we stayed there. She had cancer about 25 years ago and found out that Stanford University was doing this cutting edge stuff at the time, where they inject you with a modified. They draw out your cancer, and then they do something to help your immune system learn how to fight that only, and not everything else.
Right.
Did they offer anything like that to you before you went down to Mexico?
Right. I think what you're referring to, Dave, is a form of immunotherapy, and I have been doing various forms of immunotherapy. It's a medication. It's actually a supplement. It's called Apitone, and if I'm not mistaken, it was developed at MD Anderson. And but it's only still in stage 1 trials here in the U.S.
Yeah.
So it's available.
She's been 25 years cancer free, so it worked for her.
Yeah.
And it's tailor made because they take it from your cancer.
Okay. Oh, gotcha. All right. Yeah.
But I always said, if I get cancer, I don't want to go through all of that. I'll do the diet, the exercise. I might go to Mexico as well, but you know.
Yeah, burn and cut just wasn't for me at the time. It's my plan B. Should I? Yeah. Yeah.
How's he look, Adrienne? She's thinking about it.
Why, thank you, Adrienne. I appreciate it.
She must be muted. There we go. Yeah, you're awfully quiet today, Adrienne.
She seems.
You're muted. We can't hear you.
They were resolving network issues.
Start over. Oh, network issues?
I said I was sort of preoccupied with messages that they were resolving network issues because you were frozen and
I see.
Stuff was going
before you move on, I want to thank you, Adrienne, for the compliments. Thank you.
You're welcome.
The compliments we didn't hear. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, there were compliments.
So, Janis, I assume you're amen to everything he said. That you it sounds like you were even more positive than him in the beginning, and then it kind of got contagious. He caught on.
Well, I have seen that as my job. Not to go into woo-woo and overwhelm, but to say, okay, let's pick this apart because you have a goal. The goal is to get rid of cancer. How are you going to do that? Well, we know from the experiences of some of our friends that with prostate cancer, they decided, and this is 3 people we know well, and decided to have it cut out. Just get rid of it. Cut it out.
Right.
But then some of the cells escaped, and they're dealing with cancer in other parts of their body.
Or in the soft tissue where the prostate was.
Right.
Right. So, yeah. And, go ahead.
Yeah, but back to our our situation and what I have learned. I've been studying Pursuits of the Soul for more than 40 years, and one of the things that I want caregivers and people with the illness to be aware of is called spiritual bypass. And what this means is you're in overwhelm. You're heartbroken. But you want to be brave for your family and for yourself. You don't want to feel those feelings. And so you say, oh, it's okay. But you're kidding yourself. In fact, you don't even know you're kidding yourself half the time. Because what really needs to happen is the understanding that it's okay to be vulnerable. Yeah. It's okay to be needy. There are people that can help. There are therapies that can help. And it's okay to go into overwhelm, but to not stay there because and to be real about what's going on inside you. This is the way out. Otherwise, you just eat your insides out.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Well, listen, we're going to take a break, so we'll continue this conversation when we get back. So don't go away.
David Nassani.
Best-selling author Dave Nassani.
Dave Nassani.
Dave Nassani is a best-selling author. Where is the caregiver for the caregiver? That is where Dave Nassani comes in.
Mr. Dave Nassani.
Thank you. So you're needed.
I am needed.
You are very much needed.
I am needed.
Kind of one of a kind, right?
The woman I loved had suffered a massive stroke, left her severely speech impaired and paralyzed on the right side. Well, the first mistake the caregivers make is they don't know how to put their needs first. Now, the airlines tell us every time we go on an airplane that an oxygen mask will fall. Put your mask on first before you help your loved one with their mask. Right. For the next 2 years, our lives had become a living hell. And then there came a point where I finally had to just scream. I says, I can't take this anymore. Yeah. The second mistake that caregivers often make is they don't know how to ask for help. Now, everyone has one of these. Mm-hmm. It's called a cell phone. You turn it on, you punch in the number, and you talk. Hello, Mom. I need help. Grandma's driving me crazy. I realize there's so many other caregivers out there who are suffering, who are going through tremendous pain and feeling lost and alone. And I wanted to help them triumph over that pain. I didn't want them to give up like I almost gave up. It's called Stanford and Son, right? He used undeserved guilt. Show. It went something like this. Oh, it's a big one. No, son, really, it's a big one. Elizabeth, I'm coming to meet you, honey. She's amazing to watch. She makes us normal people look like whiners and complainers. I mean, she's my hero. First of all, when someone is just wired like a caregiver, you know, they're caring and they're giving and they give and give and give, but unfortunately they give until they burn themselves out. There's nothing left to give. Yeah. So now I host a popular iTunes podcast, The Caregiver's Caregiver Radio Show, and I'm a best-selling author to my third book. It's My Life 2, Reclaim Your Caregiver Sanity. I've been on my national book and media tour all across the country, just being on morning shows just like this one. And I even shared the stage with Suzanne Summers at Harvard. Basically, I'm sharing my message, how to prevent your loved one's illness or disease from actually killing you. Come and join our community of caregivers. Let us love on you. Let us support you.
Dave is an amazing man. I was in tears when I heard his story. He spoke from his heart.
Dave is really my idol because he created something for caretakers. And I was a caretaker for my father. Jeez, it's already 15 years and I'm still crying.
Every caregiver's life is a love story. Let me help you make that love story one of hope and triumph. Thank you very much. And we're back on the Caregiver Dave Show with John Haggerty and Janis Butler and my co-host Adrienne Gruberg. So what were we talking about? Let's see. Why don't you tell us, Janis, what you found helpful in supporting and caregiving? Because were you one before, or was this your first time caring for anybody?
No, I did care for my own mother who died finally in a nursing home at 94. But she was, I just call her stalwart northeastern stock.
I understand.
She just didn't think anything was anybody else's business. Consequently, I didn't know a lot of stories growing up. But similarly, I was able to find a nursing home finally that she could have her own room. That was of paramount importance to her, and she showed me a manner of elegance and dignity, and also what for many people as they're nearing the end of their life. I can't speak to any more than the few I've known. It's a time for going inward. John's mom currently is going inward. She doesn't need TV. She does have excellent care. So her worries. We had her in a lovely place before, lots of interaction. She's not needing that. My mother didn't need that.
I want to talk a little bit more about my mom. The situation that she, how we got her out here to begin with, is a story in itself. My mom was living in New York with my sister Beth, who was separated from her husband. He was working down in Georgia at the time. And my sister developed a very rare and aggressive form of brain cancer. This was in, November of 2014. And she passed in August of 2015. My sister's husband wanted to sell the house. Mom was kind of stuck. What do we do? So we moved Mom out to California, and we found a little independent /
senior residence. It has 4 floors.
Right.
Independent living.
Yes, very, very independent.
And she really kind of thrived there. She's a very resilient woman.
People loved her. She's had terrific personality, but they had concierge that could help her with her macular degeneration, not seeing well, and so forth. But
she did really well in that facility. She made a lot of friends. Unfortunately, she got very, very ill. She had this upper respiratory infection that really kind of got out of hand. She was taken by ambulance to the ER, and the bottom line was, after doing an assessment with the doctors and the staff of the facility she was living in, we determined that it was best for her to have another level of service. So we moved her to a skilled nursing facility in another town. So that's where she's at now.
Yeah. The one thing if our time here were to end right now, I want your listeners to realize that it's not the magnitude of the challenge you are going through. You as a caregiver, you as the person who's diagnosed with the illness. It is how you are treating yourself as you go through this challenge. It's how you are treating each other that is the most important thing. Because when you treat yourself, when you realize that it's all challenges anyway. We have lots of life challenges, but when we go through them with some sort of dignity, some sort of perspective, rather than just falling apart, you end up feeling better and more empowered.
Yeah, we're all going through something. Everybody's going through something, and so
absolutely.
Sometimes we hear about people's tragedies, and I'll be tempted to say, you know what, that's not too bad. It could be a lot worse, but sometimes people aren't prepared to hear that. Janis, you have a master's degree.
Sometimes you need to let them know and put it in perspective, though.
Yeah, the old story, there's a man who complained he didn't have any shoes till he met a man who didn't have any feet, till he met a man who didn't have any legs.
Right.
There's plenty of stuff around there for you to choose from. Whose
Sometimes it
places
helps
would
them.
you like to change with? I don't
Right.
think I want to change places with anybody because I know what I have. I have the grace for what I have, and we're getting along just fine with what I have. And maybe something simpler I wouldn't be able to handle because I don't have the grace for it.
Yeah.
God doesn't give the grace.
Mm.
So you have a master's degree in spiritual psychology. How has this played a role in John's healing?
John also, and I have them. I did the 2-year work for the masters, but I offered, and John took a little online course, and he was with me the whole time because I just received my master's in 2014. He was with me the whole time I was going through. Yeah, we were living in Scottsdale, and I would fly out every month for long weekend classes. People flew in. I'm not exaggerating. Flew in from Paris, from Dubai, Canada, and so forth. This school it's University of Santa Monica, if anybody's interested. But it solidified in me what I already had been gathering over my years of spiritual exploration, and that is we are souls having a human experience, and when people realize that that's who we are, we don't. The body dies. We don't die. We are immortal. But sometimes we come back and have another lifetime to learn more things, to have more lessons. But when we realize this, the threat of dying just melts away because life goes on. And this is an important realization for people who haven't thought about their spiritual nature.
Yeah, and not everyone agrees that we come back. Some people believe that this is the only life, and even if that's the case, you've got a great life afterwards. So, I don't fear death, and I don't think anybody should. If they're living a good life and they're having a relationship with their God, that should give them the peace and the comfort and the joy to know that everything's going to be all right. Don't you agree, Adrienne?
Well, I think Dave knows how I feel. I feel that you just need to live every day well, regardless of how much faith you have. That you can be spiritual without being a proponent of any given religion, and as long as you turn to that inner spirit and the inner voice, and trust it and allow it in, allow it to come into your life, that you will lead a better life when you're diagnosed, and even as you just go from day to day.
Yeah, because our job is to comfort people, and we may not be able to convince them to believe the way we believe. So I leave that to God. And let's go into the alternative treatment choices that you made. What drove you to making that decision?
Number one, I realized I did have some time. I could kind of just go through observation of the cancer to see if it would change at all. And that was, I would have a biopsy every 6 months, and that was the real tell as to where I was at. Knowing I did have that luxury of time, Janis happened upon CHIPSA. I guess it was something in email or on some social media platform, and it sounded like something that I was looking for in my own mind. I didn't want, as I called it earlier, the cut or burn, and that's all the allopathic doctors could offer me.
Well, we may. That is our plan B. We have that in our pocket.
Right.
But part of the plan John was presented with meant not just the radiation. It meant gobs of hormones that were sent to us. and those hormones were geared to killing his testosterone. And if once the testosterone is gone, it might not come back.
Right.
And
That's exactly
he didn't want to live that way.
Very scary.
Yeah, yeah.
It is.
Yes, it ages you. You never feel yourself anymore, and I didn't want that. So I have to say, at this point, I feel really confident that I'm going to overcome this cancer. A lot of it is, you got to get your head in the game. That's a big part of it. You can take all the supplements and eat all the right things, but if your mindset is I'm not going to get through this, you're not going to get through it. So, and this is where my relationship with Janis and her interest in spiritual psychology has really kind of helped me. I never considered mindfulness before. I never considered meditation as a modality that would really help me in terms of my health and my well-being.
When we realize that we have a soul, then because so many of us think we're our mind. We're not our thoughts. We're not our beliefs. We're not our judgments. We have those, but those aren't who we are. And that's why I brought up the spiritual side of it, because our thoughts can undo us.
Absolutely.
But when we can say, well, shut up, mind. Leave me alone. We don't have to buy into our thoughts. And I also want to say there's a process that I would like to present just really briefly to any caregivers or patients who are feeling, oh my God, oh dear, look how awful I am. I'm not this, I'm not that, I didn't do this. Yeah. It's called compassionate self-forgiveness.
Absolutely.
And it goes like this. You put your hand on your heart and you turn inward. And you say to yourself, I forgive myself for judging John, for lashing out. I forgive myself for judging myself as not good enough, as not equipped to handle whatever it is. And because the truth is, I am a good person. I can cope. And so the more you practice self-forgiveness, you can forgive yourself for just making snide comments about Sally, who's always hogging the show. And it helps. It helps relieve our feelings and thoughts that are negative and dragging us down.
It does, because I could do a real job on myself. I could really beat myself up.
Yeah, we all can.
Yeah, absolutely. And so this way of thinking was a real kind of game changer for me. And it's helped me to a large degree. There's no question about it. I feel much more self-confident. I feel the healing within, if you will.
How old are you, John?
I'll be 68 this month.
Oh, you look really good. Both of you do.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you.
So we're going to take another break. Don't go back. We will be right back.
Great.
We are a community of caregivers that understands and supports you wherever you are in your journey. We are a place to connect with other caregivers, but more importantly, a place to get practical, actionable help. There are lots of ways for you to get support. First of all, you can download our welcome pack. This will get you started on your Thrive journey. Next, you can ask and get answers to your questions by posting them here in our private Facebook groups. You can also get live online support by attending one of our live weekly Connect webinars. You can get practical, actionable advice by listening to our weekly podcast. You can hear and read other stories about other caregivers' experiences. Plus, add your own in our weekly Share Your Story forum, posted every Tuesday in the Facebook group, you can access essential resources and download practical Thrive Solutions Packs, all of which are geared to help you thrive as a caregiver. You get lifetime access to all of our resources. Again, we're here to support you and help you thrive and to enjoy your life as a caregiver. And remember, this is a place to get hope, not just cope. And we are back with Adrienne Gruberg, my co-host, and John Haggerty, and is missing.
Yeah, she'll be right back.
Yeah.
She'll be right back after this short message.
Yeah, here she is.
Here I am.
Here she comes.
So, what thoughts or ideas do you have for someone dealing with a potential life-challenging diagnosis that's going to change everything?
Probably what I did, the first thing I did was I found out as much as I could about my diagnosis. I did the research, I asked questions, I didn't take no for an answer, I questioned everything. And I think that is something that goes a long way in terms of having a healthy mindset, a healthy approach mentally toward whatever diagnosis you're given.
Well, you're being proactive. You're not
Absolutely.
just sitting. Yeah.
That's right.
You feel a part of the process as well. It's not
That's
happening
right.
to you. You're in it.
Yes, that's a real good point, Adrienne. It's kind of when I went over and saw the Stanford doc and basically said, well, it's radiation and hormone therapy for you. And I said, that's all you have to offer? And he goes, that's it.
Mm.
So I said, thank you very much. And I walked out. And it was about a month later when Janis found CHIPSA. And it's been a wonderful experience.
Yes.
Not only the staff, the hospital itself, but some of the networking I've made with some of the other patients. It's wonderful.
And I want to mention that John has the hospital has a Facebook page, and John is on other venues for helping each other, and so he has turned over a period of time into a giver. He supports people who are maybe floundering or further along than he is, and they reach out. Sometimes they call, and this is so empowering to think you can give to other people.
Yeah.
While you're even in the midst of your own process, of your own challenge.
Yeah, it's really one of the upsides of social media that you have that vehicle there that you can touch so many lives in a positive way. For all the negatives of it, it certainly is one of the positives in my mind.
So for prostate cancer, is radiation one of those things? Because it's less intrusive than chemo. But would it affect, your sex drive or anything like that?
Yeah, all of those things. It prematurely ages you as well. It's just not healthy when you think about it. What they're doing, it's just not natural, right?
So what did you like most about the whole Mexican facility and the staff, et cetera? Were you impressed?
Yes, I was impressed.
And I was too.
Yeah, absolutely. We both were. And I think the most impactful thing was the realization that there is another route to treating cancer.
So you didn't feel like you were in some third world country and, oh my God, what did I do? There was
no,
a
not at
class
all.
feel about it.
They have a huge staff of doctors. Some, one came recently, probably a year ago now, from MD Anderson. They're not all foreigners, so to speak.
Right.
They're very accomplished.
Yeah, there's a few of the staff that go over the border every day, which that's got to be quite draining. But that's the dedication and love they have for what they do.
Yeah, in fact, the main purpose, the main reason that they're all there is because, the FDA sometimes will not allow testing or promising new drugs, even on terminally ill patients.
That's right.
And that has forced people to go to places like Mexico, which is right across the border for Americans. And because are these in Tijuana? How far across the border are they?
Right, in Tijuana.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually.
And I'm told you get some of the best doctors all over the world that come and
They come in because, as you said, they're not allowed to practice what they believe they should be practicing.
Yeah.
What they believe they should be allowed to practice here.
Right.
And then the support staff, the support things like hotels and restaurants.
Yes.
Were you impressed with those that were close by as well?
Fairly.
What we did was an Airbnb.
B&B.
Actually, I wanted to mention, if anybody's considering this at all, I can paint with a big canvas a picture of what it would be like to be there. It's not Tijuana proper. The hospital is in Playas. Playa meaning beach.
Near the beach.
And so we found an Airbnb. We took our dog. We found an Airbnb that was third story and overlooked the ocean, was a block away from the ocean. And down there, I could walk Maddie while John was having treatments, and then I could walk to the hospital. And it was, and they have. Things are safe there, and they also had recommended restaurants.
Yeah.
If you weren't so, I speak some Spanish, and so I'm comfortable down there. But and most people do in Tijuana and Playas anyway.
How long was your stay?
And the initial stay was 3 weeks.
3.5.
Okay.
That's right. 3.5. Yeah, more accurately, absolutely. And
insurance does not cover any of it, right?
No.
No, but it's reasonable.
How expensive?
About $35,000 for the
overall.
Yeah.
No,
for the 3.5 weeks.
Oh, I don't think it was that much.
Yes, it was.
Oh,
yeah.
it was?
Yeah. So
I forget.
about in the neighborhood of $35,000 for 3 weeks.
Get
I was
a second mortgage on your house.
Yeah, I was fortunate in that it was not my last option.
Yeah.
Right.
Sadly for some, it is their last option.
Because they handle stage 4 people as well.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
Where they have no other choice. It's either death or that.
Right. And amazingly, I
they
know
survive.
Yes, amazing. I know a couple that were in hospice prior to going to CHIPSA, and that was 3-4 years ago.
Were you getting that drug Laetrile?
I was there. That was one of the They call it vitamin B17. Yeah, it's Laetrile. So
let's talk about your book. Why did you write it? Why the name?
I'm in the process of writing. It's because I'm at the time in life where forces come in, and you just know you've lived a life, you've made mistakes, you have lessons you've learned, and you want to share them, and then in addition, wisdom, not just lessons, wisdom, and that's why I stopped everything and devoted 2 years to the master's program, because I really wanted to have the credibility to be able to get my message out, and it is about. There's the psychology part of it. There is the living part of it. There is this isn't particularly a spiritual book. It's how to construct your best self. Well, I got lots of lessons there, and I am finishing it. I'm finishing it soon. Some do's and don'ts. But I wanted to get back to the emotional aspect of meeting and living with this challenge for the caregivers and those they love. And emotional healing involves giving love, placing love to the places that hurt inside. And you can do that daily with I mean, everybody now today knows raise your mood with gratitude. Everybody knows, oh, look for something you love. But we don't often apply that to ourselves. So this is where we can do inner work. And if you need help on how to do inner work, gosh, in this day and time, there's so many books out that offer really, really good possibilities, really good inspiration. And all you have to do is go look for them.
So what do you think your book will bring to the table that
others haven't? We are in a mastermind group of 16 people plus our mentor, and we had our first meeting today. We spent 5 days in England a couple of weeks ago with our mentor and had some wonderful experiences that we're holding on to now. And and Robert Holden, HOLDEN.com is our mentor, and we first learned about him at my commencement. He gave the commencement address in 2014, and we were blown away with what he had to offer, and we've become more or less a devotee ever since. Anyway, Robert today said, because the vehicle is your hero's journey. And believe you me, anybody who is a caregiver is a hero. And I want to tell a little story about that before we close. But back to your question, Adrienne, he said, people don't write books because they say, oh, well, this has already been done. This has already been said. But there's nothing new under the sun, but your individual take on whatever it is that other people are going through or have gone through or learned is your own story, and there is life to that, and there is newness to that.
Right, that's the differentiator.
And
Absolutely.
And it is a differentiator, and there's also the saying that if you want to attract universally, go small, go personal, go right in to your own story. And so that's an overview of what I would say I offer.
So what kind of a mentor is he? Is he a happiness coach, happiness mentor?
Our coach? Or me?
No,
our coach.
Yes.
He is famous in the UK.
For the Happiness Project.
For the Happiness Project. He's becoming well known here. He's big with Hay House Publishing Company. Mm-hmm. And he is a marvelous man. He treats like our mastermind group more like a participant who has so much breadth of research and knowledge and background, and I would say half of those of the 16 in our group are really groupies. They've done other mastermind groups with him because he's that fabulous. So we're excited to be going through this, and I know by the end of our 6 months. Yeah. I will have finished my book finally, and John will have gotten the word out a little bit more about who we are and what we're about.
So basically, we're working with Joseph Campbell's Hero's Journey, Follow Your Bliss. Mm-hmm. That Joseph Campbell? Yes.
Yep.
So it's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, so what? We're down to the last couple of minutes here.
I want to tell. Because I care about caregivers, I want to tell quickly, and I may even read it. Let's see here. It's about when my father had a stroke and lost his ability to speak. Okay, and right away, my stepmother put Daddy in a nursing home. Well, that wouldn't work for Daddy since they had between them a heart binding agreement that they would keep each other at home no matter what. So my father, being an attorney and knowing his rights, checked himself out of the nursing home and went home. Okay, my stepmother then called my brother, and since he lived closer and had no children, and demanded that my brother and his wife come down and take care of Daddy, and she left. She went to Colorado to lick her wounds with her son and his wife. Now, her son, my stepbrother, really liked Daddy and also realized that Daddy could disinherit his mother, and so patched her up and sent her back home, where she stayed and cared for Daddy with a great deal of nursing help because she could have, anyway, until he died several months later. The addendum to the saga: a few years later, my stepmother suffered a stroke, and you guessed it, lost her ability to speak.
Wow. Yeah. What's your good contact information if somebody wants more information, or let them know when that book is coming out?
Yeah.
Sure. You can go to janisbutler.com.
That's our website. Mm-hmm. And John's on there, and I'm on there. That's simple. It's Janis, like Janis Joplin was
okay.
Yes, Janis. Janis.
Can you
Butler.
sing like her as well?
Actually, I'm a good singer, but I don't drink like she did.
Or she'd still be here. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. So glad we were able to make it happen. And thank you, Adrienne. Adrienne, we can get a hold of you from thecaregiverspace.org or the Facebook page with the same name, The Caregiver Space. And I thank you all for tuning in, and we will all look forward to seeing you next week, same time. And bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Caregivers Caregiver radio program with Dave Nassani.